Hello again, YouTube. It's Skylar. Welcome back to my face. And in today's video, I'm going to be discussing the topic of being transgender and dating, which, believe it or not, is still possible. There's all different kinds of people in the world, and all of them are different, and all of them date. Well, most all, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, I never really had any experience dating pre-transition, so all of my experience dating has been as a woman. So I don't really have a comparable experience to say, well, this is what dating like was before, and because there really was no dating before, and I think that was because of my confidence level and all that. But the main thing that I wanted to focus on is what trans people should do if they're seeking a relationship, and also cisgender people if they may be interested in dating a trans person. So for a transgender individual, and I don't speak on behalf of the entire transgender community, so this is purely my opinion, but I firmly believe that if you are trying to enter the dating scene and you're transgender, you should disclose that as soon as possible. And I know there is some controversy around that because some people, well, they're like, well, I don't want it to get in the way or make it seem like that's the reason why they're going to not want to pursue anything. But if that's the reason and someone's not going to date you because you're transgender, not disclosing it right away is going to waste both of your time. So why even waste 1, 2, maybe 3 dates before telling them if it's not going to go anywhere anyway? You're just literally wasting your time. You could be spending with someone that actually doesn't care, which, believe it or not, there are a lot of people out there. I mean, they're not like in the billions of, but there are a lot of people out there that really don't take any issue with dating a trans woman. It's just not an issue for them, and that's really awesome because it shows how far tolerance has come and how people have been able to open their mind more around the issue of transgender. So no, I don't think that withholding that information because you're afraid or don't want to impose that onto someone right away really is just doing them and yourself a disservice. So moving on from that, I personally recommend using dating sites because it's just so much more easy to have the access to just so many different people, whereas opposed to just going out. I never really found that strategy was effective for anyone, including trans people. But the thing that I like about dating apps and stuff is that a lot of them nowadays give you the option of putting in your profile that you are trans, that you're a transgender woman. And that kind of gets that out of the way for you without you even having to do anything. So that's actually really awesome because then the only people that are going to respond to your profile, you already know that they don't care that you're trans. So that issue has resolved itself then and there. That's no longer a problem. And from my experience, actually some of my experiences, that's another video for another day. But I will say the last partner that I did have, I did meet on a dating site, and she actually was another trans woman. And that was actually pretty awesome. Because there was just that understanding of, hey, you're like me. But I would have never met that person had it not been for online dating. So don't shoot down online dating because of the negative reputation that it gets with, catfishing and all this other weird stuff, because you may be potentially missing out on someone really awesome. Now, I am single at the moment. I don't really feel like dating at the time. Just trying to figure things out myself. Um, but yeah, I would definitely recommend anyone that's transgender and they are thinking about pursuing a relationship or just casually dating. Definitely go for the dating apps, because that's going to give you the highest number of people that will be interested in you and the most amount of disclosure without having to have that awkward conversation. And honestly, I would suggest don't push don't push being transgender onto someone as the reason why they don't want to date you. If someone's not interested, they're not interested. It might not even have anything to do with your transgender. They're just not very interested in you. So don't let that crowd your thinking as far as why someone's not interested in you. Because there's probably, when it comes to dating, there's a lot more reasons why than just that. So, but moving on, for cisgender people, non-trans people, dating, and I don't have any experience with this because I never dated as a guy, but if you are a cisgender person and you are entertaining the idea of dating someone that's trans, good job. Well done. Now, there's a couple things to keep in mind. You have to understand that just women in general are going to be more self-conscious about their appearance than men are. And when it comes to trans women, that goes up by like a factor of 10. So you have to be a little more careful how you approach talking about a trans woman's appearance, because you might trigger her dysphoria without even realizing it, and that's not a good thing. So make sure that if you're going to compliment her appearance, you do it as ways that are, I'm trying to think of like what's the best way to say this. Trans women have to try extra hard to try to be women, so treat them like women. Treat them as you would a really girly girl. And again, I can't speak for every trans girl, but in large part, most trans women are going to really appreciate it when you do things and say things that are especially catered towards presenting that to a woman. So, for example, something that really melts my heart is, like, for instance, when a guy opens a door for me as I'm walking into a building. That may not seem like much to most cisgender women, but for me, and seeing how far I've come in my transition, that I really, really appreciate that. Something like that really makes me feel special. It makes me feel valid as a woman. And just little things like that, I really like your hair. That's a really good one. Your outfit looks great. Things along those lines that are really going to make them feel like you actually appreciate them being a woman, which is, for trans women, it can be so debilitating when someone misgenders someone, that just going that extra little step can just, brighten up their day. Now, another thing to consider if you're considering dating a trans person is make sure that you're going into it for the right reasons, and you're not chasing them solely because they're transgender, because that comes off as really, really creepy. because it's almost as if you're objectifying trans women, and that's not right. That's You shouldn't objectify anyone, but if you're going after a trans woman because she's trans, then that raises some issues as to what the motivation is. So definitely don't say I'm into trans women, because that sounds really creepy when you really think about it, because it's like, well, why? And there's nothing wrong with saying I like trans women, but saying I'm specifically into trans women, that just sounds like there's a ulterior motive behind that that's really creepy. So definitely make sure that you're not coming off too strong, because just because we're trans doesn't mean that you can just kind of go for it. Don't do that. Some other things to consider if you're planning on dating a trans woman, or if you're interested in a trans woman, is, and this is probably the most important thing, so please, please, please do not do this if you're going to try to impress a trans girl. Do not ask what's in your pants. Don't do that. It's so weird. It's so creepy. It's none of your business. It's nobody's business. I mean, just take transgender out of the equation and apply it to any other group of people, and you'll see how creepy that sounds. If you went into a supermarket or a library and started having a conversation with someone, and in the middle they go, "What's in your pants?" Yeah, it's really weird. Don't do that. No one. It's not. If you really like someone, it shouldn't matter what shape certain body parts are. Like that part will figure itself out. Like, you'll figure that out. Don't ask or try to collude information about things that are really none of your business. And that is probably the biggest thing that's nobody's business. The only people that should know what's in your pants are your doctor and someone that you're actually about to become physically intimate with. That's when it's appropriate to ask that question, because then it's there's a legitimate reason for why you're asking. But when you're trying to date someone, or when you're trying to hook up with someone, that's not a good question to ask. That just comes off really, really, really weird. So don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Trying to think if there's anything else. Nope. As far as that goes, pretty much trans and cisgender people date the same way. It's all the same. I mean, there are nuances in it, and I can go into detail probably for hours about that. You don't want to hear about that, because this video would be 3 hours long, and I don't want it to be 3 hours long. I don't have that much time in the day. So with that, I'm going to leave it at that. I guess the conclusion to the moral of the story is, don't be creepy. 1, don't ask people what's in their pants, and don't try to force being transgender on someone. Just don't do that. Like, if they're not interested, move on. There's millions of people out there who might be interested. You don't need to waste your time. So with that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and don't forget to subscribe. That's kind of what keeps this whole thing going. You guys are what makes the channel possible. So until tomorrow, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later. Bye.